G'day. Um, let's start. Let's start this video. This is going to be a bit of a long one. It's going to be a bit hard to organize everything. I've got a bloody 8-page script here, so I don't forget anything. I'm going to start screen recording on both my laptop and my iPad. All right. So to start this off, just generally. This is what works for me. This is my way. Once again, look here, the three tennis greats, they all do something completely different, yet they're all still incredibly successful. So you can still be great without doing anything that I do. I know multiple people that do something completely different and do well as well. So it's up to you. This is just a little survival. Sorry about that. This is a survival guide put together by me. So yeah. Alright, so the video is going to be a bit long. It's a bit dense and it's going to cover a lot of stuff. There's a reason it's coming out about a month before uni starts, because you need to have this sorted out sort of now before uni starts. So rewatch this as many times as you need, or send me a message if you're really stuck. So a little bit of a background on me, just so you can sort of understand where I'm coming from. I don't really want to be sort of a mediocre doctor. I think that starts now. So if I see something that I think will be, clinically relevant in future, I'll study it and add it to Anki. So I'm a bit extra in that sense. But I don't know, do you want to be a good doctor or good at passing cats? So I don't know, I work incredibly hard to get into medical school. So I worked incredibly hard to get into medical school. So I'm not going to waste this opportunity by putting in a sub-maximal effort. I want to do the best I can. So start a bit off with mindset. Change that helped me a lot is I use a infinite game mindset with everything that I do. So if we come in here, we've got 1 year. Fixed game mindset would be breaking it down into your semesters and just working hard for in between the semesters. Whereas me, I see it as this is just life for me now, so I work all the time with it, so I don't really take any breaks. So with you know, so with this infinite game mindset, as it's called, I'm not studying to be just like each semester. I'm actually doing. Oh, hang on. So with the infinite game mindset, I'm not studying just to pass the cat. I'm studying to be a good doctor. So I'm not just sprinting the entire semester to the cat, then rest for 2 weeks and sprinting again. Studying is just part of my life and every day. So doing my Anki and learning something every day is, to me, after about a year of doing it, is the same as playing a video game every day. It's just what I do. So I've never really been good at studying. I started putting in effort in year 12 and started a 3-year journey looking for optimal study methods to maximize retention time for the time you spend studying. So I spent a lot of time listening to things like Huberman, reading PubMed, multiple books to slowly develop how I study now. I would recommend you do the same thing. There's some key points that I will show you, recurring themes you'll see, but you need to develop your own system, though this is just a guide. So this took me a while to build up. Hopefully you can save some time building yours just by following on. So on to the actual med stuff. So in Australia we follow our own curriculum, but so Australia has its own curriculum, whereas in the USA they follow something called the USMLE. And then lots of other universities around the world also follow this. So if you've heard of like step exams, that's what it is. So let's go for Curtin Medical School. We've got years 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Year 1 is a waste of time and I don't really count it. It's kind of the same as doing an undergrad and then the postgrad. It's just that undergrad portion. So in the US, they do USMLE, and they have step one, and then step two and three. So step one is basically our years two and three, and then step two and three is ours year four and five. So um, step two and step one is all clinical stuff. So this is going to be sort of your pathology, your disease processes, your anatomy, your basic science. And then step two and three, this is management. So this is all drugs, dosing, things like that. So the reason this is important for how I study is that if you just look up on Google PBL study resources, like we'll do it now. Look, you're not getting much there. But as soon as you start to look up step one, you have so much more worth of stuff. So there's a lot more resources out there. Because this is the system that probably half the world's medical schools use, whereas PBL is pretty unique to Curtin and Flinders University, which we got it off. So this means that there's lots of resources out there. Now, a lot of these resources that you'll see, there's first aid, UWorld, Boards and Beyond, things like that. These all cost probably hundreds of dollars a year, US, to use. I don't really drive with spending that much money, so I have pirated copies of everything that I will either give you a link to. So for example, if I click here, this is like a whole folder of bootcamp videos. This is an online archive of USMLE videos that you can look at. So this is another one. I'll put all these links in so you don't have to pay for it. So for example, come into this folder, anatomy, and look, there you go, there's a whole video, and it's there for you to look at, and this video will load in later. That's not really the point. So I'm going to go through the resources. So the resources that I use, the most is Boards and Beyond. I have a whole folder of all their videos. So let's go. Cardiology is the first thing you do. So look, they have everything in here. They're just PowerPoint videos, but they're done very well.
Arranging organs in parallel, you greatly reduce.
So Boards and Beyond is the OG. It's the GOAT. I always start with Boards as the videos are short, clear, concise, and you get 80% of the info that you need for one PBL LO within 10 to 20 minutes. I do a lot of my work using like sort of the 80-20 principle. So that means that 80% of your content is going to come from 20% of your resources. For me, that 20% comes from Boards. Now there's some other ones as well. So you might hear people talk about, Sketchy. Just need to find the folder. So you might hear people talk about Sketchy. These are the videos that are the illustrations. So Sketchy videos are the illustrations to help you remember all the content. So you can start remembering like something like adenovirus has hemorrhagic cystitis because this guy has his bladder leaking blood. So these are for images. These are really good for complex things like biochemistry. So for example, like alcohol metabolism, they've got a whole video that's inside a store, and it really helps you remember all the steps. Something complex like this definitely helps to have. It's not my go-to, but for complex topics it is. Bootcamp is similar to Boards, so that's the one I had up before. Boot camp is like boards, but the person explains it to you like you've got a mental issue with remembering stuff. So sometimes that really helps me when I'm really tired. So for example, like most of the time, the boot camp videos will be, you know, 2 to 3 times longer than a boards video, but they have someone sitting here explaining it to you, just like a YouTube video.
The reason this kind of comes up, there's some significance to this.
They're done really well, but they're just a little bit longer. Physio, I don't really use physio that much, so I can't comment. It comes highly recommended. You can download the videos from this link that I'll give you. Online MedEd, it's a really good resource, but it's step 2 and 3, so it's only really good to get a understanding of like how a patient presents. The presenter really, the guy that gives the talks, he knows what he's talking about and looks good. Osmosis, we all or should know what osmosis is. These are the videos that look like this. I have to log in. But we all know what osmosis looks like. I don't know. I don't really like osmosis. And it doesn't integrate with the Anki step deck. So I'll cover that later. But you'll realize why I don't use osmosis that much if it doesn't integrate with Anki. So, Anki. Anki, if you haven't used it yet, you probably should. In my opinion, it's probably the most effective memory tool. It's spaced repetition. If you don't know what it is, it basically means that you see something on day 1, you get it right, you see it in 2 days, and then maybe you see it in 5 days if you get it right again, etc., until you see it, 2 months later. It resets the forgetting curves in your memory. It's really good. It's shown to be one of the most effective study tools, which is spaced repetition. The best overall is practice tests and questions. But if so the best overall is practice questions. But I think Anki used effectively can be like doing practice questions. So, but you should complement it with practice questions. To give you an example, I sort of sit down in the cat, and it'll have how it's normally set out. The stems up here, then here's all your answer options: A, B, C, D, E, stem. I always have the questions covered up with a piece of paper so you can't see them, the answers. I have them always covered up. So the thing is that with using Anki so much, about 60 to 70% of the questions I'll read the stem and write down that the answer is, I don't know, some condition. Percent of the time I'll read the stem and then I'll be writing down what I think the answer is. I'll say, I don't know, they're having a heart attack or something like that, and then I'll remove the paper, and half the time, well, 60 to 70% of the time I reckon the answer is right there. So that's from just doing Anki. You don't even really have to think about an answer most of the time. It's just already in the forefront of your mind. I differentiate learning and memory. I would say Anki is a memory tool, not a learning tool. So what that means is learning for me is like your first time coming in contact with something. Whereas Anki is just trying not to forget the content after you've already learnt it. So I don't think there's any point in doing Anki cards on something if you haven't learnt the full concept. You're just memorizing facts and not a fully formed idea. So I think you need to get the full idea here and then memorize the facts here. So, for example, sort of skin infections. We all know what it is, what it looks like, but to have all the little details, you do some Anki cards on it. So there's no point in knowing, that facts, S. pyogenesis causes erysipelas without first understanding what that would look like, all those sorts of things. So you need to learn and then memorize. As that Anki is difficult at first, it sucks, I don't know, to be blunt, but it's really effective. I spend, here, we'll have a look in here. I spend, I think, around 90 minutes a day on Anki. So let's have a look. Review time. This is not quite accurate. For 1 year, let's have a look for 1 year. I think last I checked, I spent about 90 minutes a day studying. There's 78 minutes. I had a little bit of a break after exams finished. I didn't do that many cards a day, but let's just for the last year, that's 80 minutes a day. So yeah, translates to about 500 cards a day, 400 to 5. It translates to about 500 to 800 cards a day. Yeah, new cards are a bit slower. Older cards that you've already done before are a bit quicker. So, yeah, the life hack with Anki is really just to do it. Anki doesn't really work unless you do. So, no matter how you feel, you just got to do it. It slowly gets easier. The reason that it's difficult, I actually did a bit of research on it because I was curious. The physical process of making memory pathways is difficult. It's not easy to do. So, like for example, learning a skill like, I don't know, the piano or something, it's difficult. You have to focus on it, and Anki is just that. You have to focus on it. So it's like learning a new habit. It'll slowly get easier. The hack with it is just to keep doing it. So Anking, this is where the magic happens. I'll go and show you. So the Anking, it's a guy. He has a full team now, but he has this thing called Anki Hub, and in Anki Hub, you can get Anki decks. So, let's say that you're doing a LO last year. You could easily spend 15 to 20 minutes on an LO just making cards, if not longer. But now, with how this works with Anki Hub, I probably only spend maybe 15 to 20 minutes on an LO easily just because of Anking. So you pay for it. I think it's like $8 to $10 a month. Just to have the decks is like $7 a month. You can pay once off, download them all, and then stop paying. I pay because they update the decks every time, every month, as a new illustration or content is added. So there's all sorts of illustrations on complex things. So you pay for it, you subscribe, and you get this thing called the Anking Step Deck. They have a whole list on how to get it. They have a whole guide on how to install it into Anking. So it has flashcards on everything from step 1, 2, and 3. Now the cool thing is that it has, I'll just show you. So the cool part about it is that when you come to the Anking Step Deck down here, you can see it's tagged on the side. So you go to Boards and Beyond. Let's say you're watching a video on cardiology, you're watching a video on anatomy, general anatomy. You come in here and all the cards are already there for you to do. So you can just come in, Command All, and then unsuspend them and do the cards. You don't have to make the cards for each video, it's already there. So that saves you so much time, and they have that for every single video out there. So they're tagged for every video. So you can see like Boards and Beyond, cardiology, like everything, it's all there. Now, there are some downsides. So let's have a look at heart failure or something. So they have things like here, you can see this is some drugs. Sometimes the drugs are US specific, so you have to be careful and just double check. So there's an easy workaround for this. So let's say that this milrinone drug was a drug that we don't use in Australia. You could come in and change that to a different drug, and then come in the bottom and type in the tag Anki Hub underscore protect all, and you just put this tag on it here, the Anki Hub protect all tag, and then that would stop the deck from being updated. Because they come in and they update the cards with new images all the time, but if you protect it, then it won't get updated. Because when it updates, it sometimes removes what you've edited it with. So they have other decks as well. So I'll give you a quick rundown of them all. So you got the Anki step deck. That's everything normally. You've got the Anchor deck. This is a deck about images. It's all about for people doing their radiology exams to become like a resident in radiology. So if you come in here and you want to learn about lung cancer images, I've got some cards that I've been doing on them. Let's go. Pulmonary infections, like, here you go. They'll have the images all made up for you. I'll get a good example. Here we go. So, if we preview a card here, you can see that it goes like what lobe is collapsed here. You go to the other side and it'll tell you, you can see it there. And then it also has notes, and then you can come in here and read everything there. It tells you all about it. So every system that I do, when I do a new system, there's usually a LO on imaging. So when I come in and we say we're doing like cardiac imaging, and I want to learn about like CT angiograms, see there's cards in here that I can do to have them memorized, and they're already there for me. I don't have to make the cards. You don't have to spend the time making sure that you get everything right. You just come in here and you find the specific ones you want. Another deck here is the Blue Link deck. Blue Link is anatomy on steroids. So let's say you're learning all about the pelvic cavity. So you come in here and you want to learn about the ureters. So this is just photos that have been taken of cadavers, and they've been labeled and image occluded. So they're all made up. You don't have to do anything to them. So for example, urethra, like there you go. You don't have to make these cards. They're just there for you. So that's another one. Another one here. This is the Netta deck. This is all about histology and things like that. So anytime I do a new system, I'll come in, let's say we're doing urinary, all about the kidney, then I'll come in here and these cards are already made up, and it goes what's being shown at 4, you come in, ureter sort of thing, what's being shown at 5, tubules. So this way you can get pretty good at your basic histology for no effort, really. Like, what's that, 6 cards? Maybe for the whole thing there's 60 cards, but you do them, they're quick, and you'll be really good at it. So there's that. What else is there? There's some other decks as well. We come back over to here. You can see all the decks that I have in here. This one's 100 Concepts of Anatomy is terrible. This one's terrible. This one's terrible. Anki step deck's good. The Anchor deck is good. Atlas of Auscultation is really good. It's all about like heart and lung sounds. Clinical Anatomy is not very good. Duke's Pathoma is a waste of time. Kush Ozanki is very good. I'll cover that in a bit. Navicularis, I don't really like it. Let's have a look what the cards are. Oh, this is a good deck. Never mind. Navicularis is what I have labelled as the Netta, because they're Netta cards. So if you can get the Navicularis deck on... Oh, never mind, I've just closed Anki. So Anki's loading up again. I think I'll make a video on my Anki setup, that'll be another one. It's going to be a while. So, you know how I said that there's a lot of US content for the cards? So the workaround for that is to install the Anki deck, which I'll cover in a sec. Surface Anatomy deck is good. This is an anatomy deck that I downloaded randomly because I wanted some renal anatomy. You can just download random decks whenever you want for renal anatomy. This one here, the only EKG deck you'll ever need. It's not lying. If you do the whole deck pretty well for the first cardiology block, you'll be awesome at EKGs. It's made me quite good at them just from doing those cards. And these are all things that I've gotten off Anki. So you can see all the decks in here that I'm subscribed to. So only EKG deck, Anchor, the clinical anatomy, things like that. So I rate those decks. So the workaround is to get this Anki deck. So you go to this Reddit page that has introducing Anki. It tells you all about it. You have the whole thing on how to install it. You have to go to this Google document and really follow it. It can only be installed after you've installed Anki Hub and Anki deck. So you get the Anki deck, and what this Anki deck does is it comes in and it edits all of the Anki cards with Australian content. So they'll now have Australian guidelines and things like that in there. So if we come in and have a look here, some cards.
After blank weeks, the symphysis to undivided centimeters should correlate with the week of gestation.
Excuse me, turn that down. No, I can't. I'll show a better example. So I've made all my Anki cards blue, just so I can tell when I'm browsing, because it's my preference to use these cards because they're Australian specific. So for example, let's go into here, into some things like this. These cards that are blue, they've all been updated to make sure that they have things that are Australian specific. Doesn't show up for every LO that you're doing or every block, but what it means is that you can trust that the drugs that are mentioned, etc., are exactly what you need. Now, it also has specific stuff. You get used to researching, looking all through it. So, for example, when we do a whole women's health block, there's everything in here about women's health that is, all the cards are made up for you, and they're really good cards. So, the Anki deck was made by a university at Bond.
What is the recommended daily supplementation of vitamin D in pregnancy?
So, it has all Australian content. As you can see, this is pulled directly from an Australian website. This is by far the best resource for Australian medical students for Anki that I can find online. If you find something better, let me know. So there's about 8,000 cards in it, and probably 6,000 that update the Anki deck, the step deck, and then some of them are just their own standalone cards that you have to come in here and find. So, yeah, a lot of the stuff in it is Queensland specific, but most of the stuff we learn at our level is nationalised standards. So if it's mentioned in there, it's pretty well what we need. So the key point I like to do is you come in here and you can select everything, and then I flag them all a colour, and then also you want to add the tag, the Anki Hub Protect All, because otherwise, if as soon as you update the Anki cards with this Anki content, it'll come back in when you sync the decks to Anki. It'll come in and re-update everything with all the US content. So You don't want that, so you just need to have the Anki Hub Protect All tag on them. So, what do we got now? We've got to talk about lectures. Alright, I got some. Alright, so I have a bit of a beef, as you would say, with lectures and lecturers. I think the lectures are too long. It's pretty difficult to hold a good attention span for more than 25 minutes, especially in a room, full of your mates. Top tip, I reckon, just sit with the postgrads. They work pretty hard and they want to get everything out of the lecture. Unlike your mates that probably want to play flappy golf, online shop, or watch YouTube. So the lectures are taught usually at a pretty high level, which isn't bad, but we get an expert in that all they deal with all day, let's say for heart failure, all they deal with all day is heart failure. So they use lingo, they talk about basic concepts quickly, and they usually move on to other stuff. And so even if they think that they're explaining the basics to you really slowly, they probably aren't. And then you usually get lost. So they talk about the basic concepts pretty quickly and then move on to other stuff. Meanwhile, I'm usually stuck at the first basic concept and then they've just moved on. I don't know, because when I'm studying, I usually have to pause when I'm first covering the topic, ask ChatGPT questions, go through it. And then I have to also be in the right headspace to learn. So it's pretty difficult to learn something for the first time in a lecture because you just get lost, in my opinion, unless it's a Morgan lecture. So yeah. And Morgan is an expert in his field, but not every expert in their field can teach. So they may be the best in the world at kidneys or something like that, but that doesn't mean that they can teach kidneys very well. So the problem with these lectures is I think that they're 2 hours long, most of them, and two 10 to 15 minute boards and beyond videos will cover, the entire anatomy and physiology system perfectly. So you have a 2 hour lecture on anatomy and physiology, or you can watch, 20 to 30 minutes of boards videos and I'll explain it perfectly, and then you just go do the cards. So, just wait for the anatomy and physiology lectures, you'll see what they're like. So what ends up happening is that you come into the lecture because you have to be there, you sit down, you get confused, you struggle to follow along, and then you get distracted, and then you do something else because you can't follow along with the lecture. So you end up wasting your own time because you're there and you're not following, and then you're also wasting the lecturer's time because you're there and you're not following. So, I don't know, ideally we wouldn't have lectures that are low yield, and I think we should just have Thursdays off, but that isn't how CMS wants it to be. So in order to get the most out of your time, you want to have already covered the content that is in the lecture. Sounds counterintuitive, but hear me out. So once you know what's going on in a system that you're learning about, the lectures actually make sense. You can follow along because you understand all the basic concepts and you know a bit of the lingo. And you can also ask the lecturer good questions, not questions that could have just been covered by either pre-reading the lecture or learning the content beforehand. Because the lectures are pretty low yield, usually you're just sitting there doing something and you perk your head up when you hear something interesting. There's always some gems in the lectures. So having already covered the content, what you can do is you can instantly know whether it's just something that you've already covered in Anki cards or something that you haven't covered. So if you pop your head up and you hear something new, you can instantly put it into Anki. So, but if you hadn't have covered the content yet, you'd have no idea what is a gem of knowledge and what is important or not. So you just miss out on picking up those gems because I bet you're not going back to rewatch these lectures. Yeah. The only time that being prepared for the lecture usually doesn't work is when they have lectures that come in, 2 to 3 months in advance. But there's nothing you can do about it, so you just take it as you can. So my best advice would be always be sort of a week ahead for your lectures. Always try and go into the lecture having some clue of what's going on, unless you think you just don't want anything to do with it, and that's fair enough. But I always try to go into the lectures having at least covered the content that they're about to cover. onto PBL. I think the same goes for PBL. In an ideal world, I reckon you should go into PBL having already done the LOs, and not read the case, but just have done the LOs. I think this makes PBL a lot better for everyone, because we're not just floundering around like lost fish going, I have no idea, what this clinical sign means. I don't know, you can make the LOs a lot quicker once you know what you're looking for, and you can have a bit of a, discussion. Because in the first PBL, I feel like nobody knows anything, so it's just the tutor there, and then everyone's sort of sitting there going, oh, I think the patient has an issue with their heart because they have chest pain, or something like that. So you're supposed to be picking up on clinical cues in the first session, but it's really hard to pick up on clinical cues when you haven't learnt about them yet. So I think you should just go in having done the LOs, and then it makes it a lot quicker. So you pre-read for clin skills, or at least you should. So why wouldn't you for PBL and lectures? I'm not saying pre-read the lecture slides, just have the content covered. So I personally like to start the year with 1 to 2 blocks of content covered. So when we're going in and doing cardio, and then whatever comes comes straight after cardio, I usually like to go into the year, having already done at least one of those blocks. And then this is my sort of buffer. So how I'll draw it out is, so usually I try and be a few blocks ahead, and then as we start, we're doing a PBL a week. I'll still do a PBL a week, but I'll just be, a block ahead. So I'll still cover a whole PBL's worth of LOs a week. And then as stuff generally slows down throughout the year, you'll be covering PBLs all good for these, few months. And then let's say in May you miss a week, and then maybe you miss another week over here, then you're still ahead on the PBLs. So that's why I call it a buffer, so that you can just be sort of ahead of time for everything. Usually means that you're always knowing what's going on. I think at a minimum, you should always be 1 PBL ahead of the course. So let's come in here. You come in here week 1. Let's say you're doing PBL 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. I think you should have already done 1 here, and then you're doing 2 here, 3 here, 4 here, 5 here. I would recommend probably being 3 to 4 ahead or more, and then you can just have a buffer, and as you lose PBLs with busy weeks, you'll still be ahead of the curve. That's the way to go. So if you haven't sort of gathered already, I'm not really about wasting time in class. You have to be there. So yeah, I spent all my time in year 1 just being in the lectures and being like, oh, this is a complete waste of my time. And the same with the PBL first session. I was just like, can we just get through this? Give me the LOs so I can go and learn them. But yeah. I'm lost on my script. So I think you should just make use of the time in lectures. If you're going to have to spend 18 hours a week, 13 hours a week in class, you may as well, get to use it instead of just sitting back and browsing. I don't know, I browse AliExpress a lot in lectures if I don't know the content. So if I know what's going on, then I can make use of the time, ask good questions, and the same goes for clin skills, PBL, etc. So let's go through the study process for a PBL's worth of LOs. I would say get the whole lot of next year's LOs from someone in year 2. I'm not going to put them in this Dropbox that I make, as Curtin Med School is not going to like that at all. So get them from someone you know. They probably won't even like this video, as they look down pretty heavily on USMLE resources and recommend you use textbooks. But I went through all of year two not touching a textbook once. So, I don't know. It can be useful, but also the 80-20 rule takes a lot of time to read a textbook, whereas a board's video is a lot quicker. So, let's get into it. I'm going to get PBL up. Let's go for PBL 1. I'm going to open it up. So a bit of the external study process for me. I like to set a day before that I just go through, and I just like I go, oh, this Wednesday or tomorrow is going to be a study day. So the night before, I really try and get a good night's sleep. It's really important that you do. Then I'll usually train in the morning, eat breakfast, shower, etc., have some caffeine, and then I'll usually try and study, by 8 or 9 a.m. If you're curious about things outside of caffeine, best bet is just stick with good night's sleep and a bit of caffeine. No amounts of nicotine or nootropics are really going to outperform that. And then I'll just chill out in a quiet area, no disturbance, and no other people. So it'll just be me and studying. So let's go. We'll start here, PBL 1. We'll come in here. I need to get rid of my highlighting. There we go. Alright, so I'll come in here, and then I'll just go through, and as I'm going through, I'll change. I don't know, I like this color usually. So I'll come in, I'll just highlight the key words that I need to know for each LO. So I'll go through peripheral nervous system, normal, histological features, neuron, action potential, neurotransmitters, peripheral nervous system. So I'm getting a lot of that. Surface, gross anatomy, heart, major vessels, branches. So I'll just be going through, I'll go do that for all of them. Structure, blood vessels, cardiovascular system, function. So I'll go through, I'll do that for all of them. And then what I'll also do is I'll usually have open up the next wrong one. I'll usually have the next 2 or 3 LOs up. So I'll have this one up, and then I'll have a look at PBL Case 2's LOs as well, because sometimes, like for example here, there's this whole, so this one here is all about anatomy, etc., structure and function, but then in here this one's all about control and flow, resistance, circulation, control, and I notice that when you're looking at something like your Boards and Beyonds videos, so you can see them in here, that for example this whole one has anatomy, blood flow mechanics, cardiac physiology, all of that in there. So I find it easier to just go through the whole videos, and they'll cover multiple PBLs worth of content, and then that just saves you learning anatomy, breaking it up and going into another one that you might have to then learn about flow and resistance to understand a drug concept that's covered later. So that's how I do it. And then all of these videos in here, when you pirate these, they're organized in alphabetical order and not how the videos are actually made. So that can be confusing. But if you just come into the Anki and you look at the tags for the videos and say you want to learn about the intro, you can see here that it starts with anatomy, physiology, response to exercise, blood flow mechanics, and you can just watch them in here in that order. So that's how I would do it. So from here, let's say that I want to learn about peripheral nervous system. This is cardiovascular system, structure of the blood vessels, cardiovascular system. So I might come in here, I'll go to cardiology. Maybe I wanted to find something about neurology. So I come in here to the nervous system and I'd find the exact video that would be what I'm after. Now here's where a trick comes in. See how there's a lot of videos here and they're kind of hard to find? What I've done is, if I come to Notebook LM, this is the AI that you can upload videos to. So what I've done is I've uploaded a folder structure for my sketchy videos, and it tells the AI exactly where all the videos are in the folder that I have. So what I'll do is I'll come in here and I might copy and paste this and put it in here, and I go, what sketchy videos will cover this content, and then I'll give it to it, and it'll tell me the exact videos that I should be watching and where they are in the folder. So that's another time saver. I haven't done it for the boards videos because I'm pretty comfortable with the folder structure. If you want to do it, just ask ChatGPT how to do it. You just need to put in some terminal commands, and it'll tell you how to do it. So this has given me way too much, but that's how AI works. You can modify the commands as you need. Yep. So what I'll do is, let's just say we start with some blood flow cardiac anatomy, right? Pull up basic video. Hello.
Hello everyone and welcome to our module on cardiac anatomy. Let's start by reviewing the major chambers of the heart. Blood enters the right atrium.
Right, so we're going to be watching it.
After blood moves through the lungs, it enters.
It's a bit basic. Most of the time we know that.
Posterior relationship of structures inside the.
I'll be watching this and I'll be taking notes. I take notes on paper or my iPad or whatever. I'm never going to look back at them, but it improves retention to take notes while watching the video. So I'll be watching and I'll go, oh yeah, okay.
Chest, including the
Right
heart
ventricle.
vessels. So to help orient you, this is a cross section through the chest. The black areas on the sides are the lungs, and in the middle of the picture is the heart and the aorta. Contrast material has been injected into the vascular system so that blood.
And then I'll go, oh, he'll say something about, oh, the right ventricle gets stabbed or something like that. So I'll write that in. Now, this is a key, I don't know, it's a really cool little neuro trick for memory. So as soon as he's gone through this slide, what I'll do is he goes to the next one, and so I'll be watching. I'll go to the next one.
And they like you to understand for your boards what can be affected if the left atrium becomes massively dilated. And now that you've seen this picture, hopefully this will help you remember that the esophagus is right next to the left atrium. Let's talk.
So then as soon as he goes to the next slide, I'll pause and I'll use something called the gap effect, and I'll try and think back to what that last slide was. So I just quiz myself in my head and I go, oh yeah, right ventricle's at the front, gets stabbed, left atrium's at the back, it's next to the esophagus, and then when that gets big, then something like the esophagus, and you get hoarseness of the breath, or you get a bit of pain there. So that's what you use. And if you miss, you don't really know what's going on, then you haven't been paying attention, and you can quickly go back. It's just starting that memory process by quizzing yourself, because quizzing yourself and doing practice questions is by far the most effective way to memorize stuff, have stuff in your memory. Rereading notes, writing notes, yeah, that's okay, but quizzing yourself is the best way. So that's what I'll do. So let's say we're watching this video, cardiac anatomy. I come over here, I find this, and I find all of these cards, and I would, unsuspend them all. And then what I do is I'll come in here. I'm going to turn off my. I'll show you what it is first. So I'll come in here. Let's say we're going to do the cards we've just done. Study.
What is the effect of COX inhibition, e.g., aspirin on production of leukotrienes gland?
I have the voice to speech on because I like it. Helps me, stay locked in on all the cards that I'm doing. So I'll come in here and I'll be doing the cards. I know that that's that. I'm gonna change the sound. Turn that off. Okay, so I'll be doing the cards. I know that card. Okay. But what I have is this plugin here. It's called the Anki Terminator plugin. Once it loads in, So what it is it's a ChatGPT inside your Anki. So let's say I didn't quite understand what was going on here. I could come in, move on to a different card, come in, and it'll click and it'll explain everything that's going on in the card, and then you can ask more questions. So, for example, I've got here a flow button. You can set all these up. I just click flow and it goes, give me a simple flow chart that explains how everything works. Or I can go, give me why exactly this happens, and it'll just explain it to me here. This saves me time because one, you don't have to copy and paste in the cards. It's already done up in here. It's pretty cool. And then say if I wanted a memory tool for it, I could come in and say, give me a like memory phrase to remember it. And then you can come in, another drop phone. What we can do is we can come in and we can highlight this here, say I really like this memory term. I can right click and I can add it to the lecture notes field on the card, and then all of a sudden it's already in the card. I didn't have to copy and paste it in, I didn't have to edit it in, I didn't have to do anything like that. It's just there, it's ready to go. So that's what I like to do. Yeah, it's really good for, you know, little memory tools and things like that. Okay. So that's covered what I'll be doing here. I usually chunk LOs together. So let's say that this is all, these ones here are all about cardiac anatomy. So I'll do LOs 3 and 4 together. And then these ones are all about the nervous system. So I do those ones together. That's how I'm doing it. And then I'll go through and I say, oh yeah, I know all about the blood vessels really well. So I'll come in and I'll highlight this green, but I don't really know anything about surface anatomy. So I'll come in and I'll highlight this orange, and I'll just do that for all my key terms. Let's say I know the gross anatomy really well of the heart, so that's now green, and I know. And then once the whole LO is done properly, I'll usually just come in and highlight the whole thing green or whatever. So that's how I do it. I think I'm lost. All right, cool. So let's say I've covered probably up to LO6 or 5 to 6 or something like that. That'll probably take me 1 to 2 hours, maybe a little bit longer. Takes usually longer at the start of the block because you're covering all the big heavy concepts, and then towards the end of the block it tapers off because you're doing smaller and smaller, more specific content. So let's say it's taken me a while to do that. Then what I'll do is I'll just keep going until I feel like I need a break, and then I'll go for like a little walk, and I'll just think about what the videos are about. So I don't know, it has some cool neuroscience background to it. I don't know how exactly it works, but it helps you remember it better. And then I'll recaffeinate again, and then get back to my study. So I start the day with the big tough blocks of study, and then as limbic friction starts to build up, then I'll start to bring out, you know, the clock and start to do 25 or 30 minute Pomodoros, just because at that point you're like, oh, I don't want to study anymore, but then you can just do the 25-minute Pomodoros to get through all your Anki cards for the day. So sort of now you've understood the basics of how I'm going LO to boards to Anki. That's how I'm doing my study for each LO. That's just the top. So I like to spiral my study. I'm not going to draw a very good spiral here, but let's say that I start at the top and I get deeper and deeper and deeper in and more specific. So always at the top of my study is going to be boards. Just because it's the, you know, the best 80% of the content is there. And then what I'll do from there is then I'll start to look down and I'll go for Australian content. So then I'll go for RACGP. Now, a little trick to get for RACGP content is you come in here, and luckily ChatGPT has a cool feature now. It's called search. So you can click on the search feature. You come in here to your LO. Let's say I want to know all about risk factors, because that's something that the RACGP will cover. What does the RACGP cover? Say about this. Give me concise dot points. There we go. So it'll go browse the web and it'll find exactly the risk factors that you need. And then what you can do here, it's used sources that I don't want. You have to play around with it a little bit. Maybe if I do it like this. It'll give you exactly what you want if you prompt it enough. But because I haven't had the pro version at the moment, it's not being super nice. But let's say, for example, I take this and I really want to make flashcards out of these. I have a cool flashcard generator that I just made up using. It's not going to let me use it, but it'll let me just make up the cards, and then I'll come in here and I'll go add, and then I can just copy and paste it in, and it'll have it made up in this style with the closes already there, ready to go. So that's cool. So I usually go RACGP because that's exactly what Curtin wants from us. If you haven't realized already, they're training us to be good GPs. So you usually go for RACGP, or if you're doing like cardiology, maybe you'd go for the cardiologist college sources, but I would just stick with RACGP for most things, unless it's like the maternity stuff, and then you go for the obs and gyns resources, things like that. So from RACGP, then I usually go to hospital specific guidelines. So they'll usually use KEMHS, so that's King Edward Memorial Hospital, or they use the Royal Children's Hospital. So they'll use the Royal Children's Hospital in Melbourne, or they'll use Perth Children's Hospital's resources. So for example, if you're doing like asthma or something, asthma attack guidelines, KEMHS. So here's like Royal Children's Hospital. It has the exact clinical guidelines on exactly what you should do if you're given. There you go. So this like picture here, that would be what you're really looking for. Cool thing is that the Anki deck usually has all of this stuff already in it. So that's where the third step comes in. Usually I check Anki as well. These last two steps of the spiral, I'll sort of do them on the same side. So got that. You might make a few Anki cards on it, might not. And then that's usually complete, unless you have some lecture content that you need to go through. But that's so far. And then what I'll do is, say we're doing cardiology, I would go to the Anki deck and I'd try and find exactly what I need to find on. So this, like, for example, here's coronary syndromes cards on this. So I would try and find what's already been made up, because this is Australian content, as you can see here. This is all made from Australian stuff, so you don't have to make them yourself, and they're all really good looking cards. So go from there, and I'll try and find. They're not exactly easy to find. They're not exactly easy to find, but you can figure it out yourself. To find all of them, you just have to go through all the weeks in here, etc. So then I'll look in the sidebar filter and I'll start searching. So let's just say we're done cardiac. So I'll start looking through until I find cardiac in the tags. So you can just start looking through and you can find, I don't know, here's someone, cardiac muscle, cardiac embryology. So this here is all the Boards and Beyond videos, right? So you'd already have gotten the cards from them. But let's say you want to make sure you haven't missed anything, so then you can come down and see what bootcamp is saying about cardiac anatomy. So you can have a look in about stuff that you've missed. For example, oh look, here's a card that I actually missed when I was going through because I just did the boards and I didn't check. And so you can see that here is some cards that you haven't done yet. So you could come in and unsuspend them if you wanted to. And I'd go through all the cards that are tagged like that so I could make sure that I'm not missing out on anything, and I just pick relevant ones. So from there I'll go through and I'll just look at the tagged cards. So once you've covered that, you're pretty well covering like 95% of everything you're ever going to need to know on that LO. And then that rest 5% comes from gems in lectures that you pick up, or it comes from sort of doing a practice question going, oh, I had no clue about that. So I'm going to make a card on it, that sort of thing. So after I've done this, what you want to do is you really want to get a good night's sleep, because it's going to help it all lock into your brain. And then this helps it make sense the next day. Once you start doing this, you really notice it. The first day you do cards that you've just done a video on, they don't really make much sense, or they're really hard to remember. And then as soon as you had a really good night's sleep, then you do the cards the next day and they just click. They make sense again. Well, they make sense. So this is because REM sleep, all of your memories sort of get consolidated and fixed up. So you make sense of them in your sleep. The key thing here is that REM is like the last part of your sleep cycle. So if you get the most you get the most amount of REM sleep in the last 2 to 3 hours of a night's sleep. So this means that if you're going to sleep 9 hours, everything's going to be good. But say you sleep 6 hours, you're missing out on that last little chunk of sleeping, which is where all the REM happens, and which is where you're consolidating all your memory information. So the next day, you're effectively hamstringing yourself because you're going to have to work harder to remember the content. So that's why I try and focus on getting a good night's sleep after I learn content, because it saves me in the long term from having to relearn it or just work harder to memorize it. So that's pretty much it for doing LOs. Onwards. Only one page left. So for the following week, when it's in lectures, I'll just do my best to ask good questions, and I will just be sitting there, and then as soon as something comes up that I haven't got covered, then I'll just make an Anki card on it pretty quickly. Alright, onwards to Clin Skills and OSCEs. So I got a pretty simple formula for class. So I usually just pre-read all the content, and then I'll find a guy called Dr. James Gill. He's a YouTuber, but he's a doctor, and he has all about the videos. So you can see here I've watched this video. Now, when you normally watch the videos that CMS gives you, they just show a guy and he's like, oh yeah, we're looking at the thyroid today, so hand here, dirt, 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 dirt. And they just show you what you need to be doing, but they don't explain anything. So this guy here, he always explains exactly what's going on and like the reasoning behind why you do this exam. So that helps me, come into the Clin Skills class knowing what's going on exactly. So yeah, I come in having a pretty good grasp of what's going on. And then, I don't know, once you start to do this, you realize how much more you get out of class because you actually know what's going on. You'll notice it in your colleagues when they don't pre-read because they just have no clue. You should practice every week. They give the practice rooms out, so if you can get to uni for that Friday or whatever. I know everyone can't. You should just practice there or practice at home with a friend. I myself bought a blow up alien off eBay to practice on. I probably didn't do enough practice as I should have, but oh well. So for each exam, what I'll do is I'll make a Anki card that is just everything for that exam. So this is my deck for it. I don't do it very often. So this is what the card will look like. It'll say GI exam full step, and then I'll go, oh yeah, okay, consent, and then I need to go up and I need to look at their hands and I need to look for this, look up their arms, and go from there. And I'll just be sitting there with my eyes closed. I have my stethoscope out. If I need to listen, I'll be there going, yep, renals, yep. And then I come through and I check this card and I make sure that I have everything that I've missed. And if I'm missing something like, if I miss a whole line, then that card is done wrong and I'll have to do it again. Now, these cards suck. I really don't like doing them, but they work because you just remember everything. And in an OSCE, you're likely going to remember, forget, one of these lines, but because you've been doing it so much, everything else is just drilled into your mind, so you don't forget it. You'll do well anyway, even if you miss something. So that's how I do exams, along with practicing with classmates. And then what I'll do for the OSCEs, for history taking, I pay for the ChatGPT Plus on my phone, so then I can just practice taking a history. I have you can see in here where I've taken practice. I just sit there and I practice away, and I'll talk to the AI. I'll be like, oh, can you be a sim patient for me? Sometimes you got to coach them a little bit and be like, when I say what's going wrong, don't say, I think I'm having a heart attack, or tell you exactly what they think's going on, and they just give it all away. So, you have to train the AI a little bit, but you can sit there and you can even do timed practices because they're really fast now. So I like it like that. And then, it's got pretty realistic voices, and because it works, you can you can just practice in the car, in the shower, walking around, you can just talk to it. I usually sit down at a table and practice with the timer and my notepad like I would in an OSCE, just to be realistic, but when you're first getting the hang of histories, you can take them in the shower, just to get the natural flow of it going. And then as OSCEs come around, I usually ramp up the practice. So I have, more things going on, but I think you should probably just set a time every weekend to do about an hour or so, do 2 or 3 exams, and set a schedule, and then you just won't fail. All right, let's go look at the next one. So my study process over a week usually just revolves around work and training, so I just fit it in outside of that. At a minimum every day I do my Anki, so this means that I don't have to take notes to class or carry notebooks, etc. I don't take any notes except for the ones that I take when I'm watching the video, but I don't actually look at them. It's just for memorization. So it's pretty comforting because alright, so as I was saying, it's pretty comforting. I accidentally bumped to the phone, touched the phone, and then stopped recording. So I spoke for about, 10-15 minutes, and don't have anything to show for it. Luckily it wasn't earlier. So I was saying that it's pretty comforting that I can walk around all day knowing that I could pass the cat if they gave me a cat up until this point, or even a few blocks ahead. So compared to how I was studying in year 1, I can't say the same thing. So yeah. This also works, I would say, because the volume's just off the charts. 90 minutes a day of Anki for about 365 days is a lot more time than just cramming content in the month before the cat that I used to do. So I actually do less study when classes finish for the year, just because I'm revising every single day and not just in the immediate lead up to the exam. I may have already said that. I don't know. So I get my Anki done, and then I just work through the LOs of an upcoming PBL. I usually get one PBL done a week, and on holidays it can be upwards of 2 a week, as you don't have that 13 to 20 hours just worth of class to deal with. CMS says medicine is a full-time degree, so they reckon you need to spend 38 hours of time invested in a week, so that'd be like, your 15 hours for class plus extra for study. I don't know, I think I can get under 38 hours. I think I probably average around 30, 35, maybe under 30 usually. So as I aim to be pretty effective with my time spent studying, so I can spend 20 to 30 minutes per LO and be done before it goes into my Anki, and that'll be, I'm ready to go. Whereas if you're reading textbooks, you spend I'd spend at least 10 minutes trying to find the right textbook and log into everything, get sorted, find the exact chapter I want. Then you've got to spend 15-20 minutes reading it, and then you've got to make sense of it, and then you've got to make your own Anki cards if you want to use Anki. So that makes the time spent on each LO a lot longer. I'm trying to minimize that, but still get good results. There's no denying that if you spent 50, 60 hours a week doing the textbooks exactly how they say, making your own Anki cards, all that, I'm sure you do very well, but I'm not doing badly at all, just doing this. And I think there's 2 levels to it. There's sort of reading the textbooks, doing everything properly, spending a lot of time. The lowest level, I think, would probably just be like half-assing everything and cramming, and then just above from that would be just doing boards and anking. That'll get you, sort of 60 to 80% of the content you need to cover, and then I think I'm above that again, just with the fact that I'm doing spiraling down to get extra content. So I think time versus results is really good on this, and I'm not having to make my own Anki cards, which is another lot of time spent. Another one to save time that I do is I don't study with other people. I think it's a bit of a waste of time. I used to do it a lot in year 1, and now I realize that I'm much more effective just spending time studying alone. For example, in the morning, if I want to get work done, sort of 8 to 12, that's 4 hours of work there, 10-15 minutes worth of breaks. I can have everything done for the day and then be ready for the afternoon to just chillax or train or something like that. Whereas before, I think that if you're hanging out with your friends in the library all day, you spend at least 4 hours over the course of an 8-hour block just chatting. So I think you can save your time just doing all your study yourself. Now, there's no hate on it if the only way you're going to get through, that 4 hours of study is by just hanging out with your friends and just being there for the extra time. But I just don't have that extra time up my sleeve. So the key action items for you if you want to use this method, or just some key takeaway points. So I think number 1, so you can make the most out of your class time, PBL time, Clin Skills time, is to always be a week ahead of uni and always have your pre-reading done. Means that lectures go easier, means you understand everything that's happening. It's just a much more refined experience, I think, and you're not just sitting back in lectures going, what the hell's going on? Then get Anki and the Anking deck. There's YouTube guides on how to install it all, how to set it up. They're by this guy called the Anking on YouTube. Just look up like Anking setup guide, things like that, and Anki setup guide. It'll cover everything. They also have a thing where you pay them and they'll like hop on a call with you and just, I think, help you set it all up. I don't know exactly how it works, but I think it'd just save you time if you can afford to cough up the money for that. It'd probably save you 3 to 4 hours. I don't know. Depends on what you'd rather be doing. And then from there, you want to install the Anki deck. It doesn't say it in the instructions, but make sure once it's all installed, I like to flag them with a color so you know which ones are which, and command all the cards and then update the tag with the tag Anki hub _ protect all, so that everything's protected, and then that it doesn't get updated by Anki. And then get the LOs from a year 2, or someone who was in year 2, year 3 now, and then start studying now or soon. Why start now? I mean, studying's a bit of a load that the brain's got to get used to. So if you go into start on week 1, not only are you trying to set up everything, you're also trying to get used to the study load on your brain. So I would say spend that, if you're starting in 4 weeks, have another week off or whatever. Spend 1 week setting everything up, getting used to that study mode, and then spend 2 weeks studying, and you'll be 2 to 3, 4 LOs ahead of everyone. And then you're just good to go, and you have that buffer. So I don't know, it takes me about a week to get out of sort of a maintenance mode of just doing what I need to on Anki to then getting into a study mode, because I'm just not used to spending those 3-4 hours a day studying. So it takes a while to get out of that mode. So I'd say do it now. So I'm going to make a Dropbox with all the videos from like boards, Sketchy, and I'll have a document in there with a link to a bunch of videos as well, and some like resources you can use. So I think I had a look at it before. It's not going to be super cheap for me to put up a Dropbox that's going to hold as many videos and files as I'm going to put up. So if you see me around if you see me around uni, please shout me a coffee if you got some value out of this. I'll have a chat to you. Be great to meet you. If you didn't get any value out of this, that's cool. Or if you don't want to buy me a coffee, it would be cool if you could follow me on Instagram, because I'm trying to grow my account so I can get some sponsors for triathlon. You don't have to watch what I put out, or if you do, that'd be awesome. If you send me a message on Instagram, I will respond to it, but it may take me some time to get to it, because I don't have Instagram on my phone, and I just check it every week or so, or when I upload a video there. So I'll respond, but it'll be random. Or send me a message on Strava, and I'll probably respond pretty quickly, because that's the only social media I have on my phone. And if you have any other videos you want me to make, just comment them below or send me a message about it or whatever. And that's the end of the video. It's been pretty massive, so take some time off to process it all and get a good sleep. Thank you.